Okay, you just said cinnamon. Cinnamon is so good. It cured me of my type 1 diabetes. I don't need... So, telling someone who's type 1 diabetic that they need cinnamon, and we can lump in Reiki, essential oils, an herb, even a food or diet program. You need to do this, magic medicine kind of thing. You need to go on mastering diabetes. You need to get into Gabriel Cousens. You should be vegan. If you said any of this stuff, it's precisely like telling someone who lost their arm that they should regrow their arm. And you don't think you can regrow your arm? That's a limiting belief system. This is literally what it's like for us. And the most ignorant people are often the most loving ones, like sweet guys, people who are into, Reiki or energy healing. Herbs, I love herbs. There's a lot of reasons that, an herb could be beneficial. There's thousands of studies on the herb licorice alone. But I can't imagine that someone who had autism, you would say to them, you need to do this, it'll be cured. You don't believe you can cure it? And be really insensitive about that. Although, now that I'm thinking with autism, I know that probably happens, and they're being fed tons of advice by tons of, false gurus and what people have heard on the internet, and it takes kind of an advanced approach naturopathically if you're even going to walk there into the idea that you treat autism. So maybe that's not a good example. But someone who, what can we think of, has cerebral palsy. If someone had cancer, we wouldn't necessarily, say, you need to do this and throw it all in their face. And if somebody had AIDS, you wouldn't say, well, I think this is, curable and everything, you don't really need to believe that this illness is going to, and I heard about someone else who cured this. So what we want to differentiate here with the type 1 diabetic is, what are you instructing that's relevant to type 2 diabetes versus what is useful for type 1? So I'm going to give you a little certificate. Congratulations. After this, you'll have earned the certificate of being able to speak to a type 1 diabetic if you apply the following rule. All that is used to treat type 1 diabetes is insulin. That's it. There's nothing else. There's some people who, fly across the world and get really expensive stem cell treatments, and if you spend 40 grand doing that, multiple times a year, that might reduce your need for insulin. Nothing else. There's a technology called closed loop system, where you have one device on you that measures your blood sugar and another that sends insulin to your body, and in some ways that can happen automatically, although it still needs a ton of management. It's not the automatic artificial pancreas yet. We're nowhere near there. So in effect, what I'm saying, there's no cure, or more importantly, just having type 1 diabetes doesn't mean that you have an illness. You could be being type 1 diabetic and be healthier than non-diabetics. You could be in a great whatever place in your life, or even if you're not, if you're going through, ups and downs and having tough times managing your blood sugar, the treatment is still just insulin. And then it's a question of how can you make the treatment better integrated into your life. So if you stick with that, the cure for type 1 diabetes is insulin, then you're allowed to speak, right? I wouldn't go too much further than that. So that's been our first video on cinnamon.